horror fam, I'm Poltergeist Steve, and thanks again for checking out my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my spoiler review for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. So this is the requel that Netflix just put out based on the 1974 Tobe Hooper classic, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So again, full warning, this is a spoiler review, so if you have not seen the film, stop, go check it out on Netflix, and then come on back. So, full disclosure, I am not a huge fan of the original. I understand what it did for the slasher genre, the horror genre, cinema in general. Not one of my favorites. I can sit back and enjoy it, but just not exactly my cup of tea, and that's okay. So, as with all reviews, take my take with a grain of salt. I actually really loved this film. I thought it was a lot of fun, extremely fast paced, and just overall a good time. I've seen it twice so far. First time, just so every time I see a movie for the first time, I just kind of want to, watch it, not overanalyze it, just kind of take it all in. Second time, I went in a little more analytical, but still enjoyed it. So, I want to hit a few points when it comes to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the requel, using Scream 2022 terminology. So, a few things that I want to touch on. The kills. The kills were fun. I mean, they were fun, they were gnarly, they were gross. Pretty much what you would expect in a Texas Chainsaw movie. Leatherface was scary. I felt like Leatherface in the original was kind of maybe scary in moments, but then kind of like bumbling and weird. Like the last 30 minutes is just a bunch of squealing and screaming, and I don't know. Like I was scared of Leatherface in this film. I thought he was phenomenal. I thought they did some great stuff with his character. I think the relationship that he had with Mama was very interesting, and you see that kind of in the little moments throughout the film. The fact that it was her face that he chose to wear to kind of honor her after she died, I thought that was phenomenal. When Melody is hiding, and you see Leatherface putting on the makeup, picking out her dress, I thought that was interesting. And it really I don't know, she was just hiding him for 50 years? Was she rehabilitating him? That's kind of interesting. That was something that I thought was new for Leatherface. When she was dying in the ambulance and she said, don't go in my room, obviously we find out that she was hiding the chainsaw in the wall. Just like this dynamic I thought was really interesting. And it, obviously Leatherface is the villain. He's going around slaughtering people. Obviously the bad guy. But, the fact that they were able to create these little moments where you felt bad for him, I thought that was really cool. And very well done. So, Leatherface aside, so we have our villain, our heroes. So, the filmmakers chose to follow a group of young 20-somethings, once again, traveling through the deserted streets of Texas to stumble across Leatherface. This time, their motivation is to auction off reclaimed property in the town of Harlow, right? So clearly, we're getting themes of gentrification, some really interesting topics. Speaking of the themes, so, the horror genre lately, if we're looking at Halloween 2018, for example, is being used to explore trauma. And I thought they did that kind of well in this film. I would say, the themes are there and I appreciate them for trying. Could it have been stronger? You look at as a thread, could it have been threaded through the film a little bit better? Sure. So speaking of the theme of trauma, we have Sally Hardesty coming back from the original, and we have the character of Lila. Both have experienced trauma in their past. Sally's trauma, the original encounter with Leatherface. Lila being a school shooting survivor, which I thought was interesting. I thought I couldn't quite tell the messaging that the filmmakers were taking on gun violence in general. I could see that they were doing some equivalency with gun violence with the chainsaw, and that kind of just juxtaposing that with horror movie violence. I don't think saying that horror movies are to blame. I think they were just kind of using that as an artistic parallel. But what was interesting is you have these two characters who are dealing with their trauma. Sally having become a trooper, having looked for Leatherface for her entire life, pretty much defined by this trauma. And Lila trying to run from it. So they approach this town. Lila and her sister Melody disagreeing on, moving to this town of Harlow. So I thought, that really was striking, and that Sally was consumed by her trauma, and ultimately led to her demise. And Lila facing her trauma and using that to overpower and take down Leatherface. Kind of just showing that trauma could affect people in different ways. Now, like I said, not being a major fan of the original film, I wasn't too nostalgic for having the character of Sally back. So the fact that she died in this film didn't bother me so much. I don't know and you can let me know in the comments, did Sally fans, was this as bad as, Laurie dying in Halloween Resurrection? Right? I can't tell the impact. I thought it was interesting. I saw someone on Twitter say that this was kind of the anti-requel, right? That, we bring back these characters like Laurie Strode and Sidney Prescott and their royalty. We don't really have that with the character of Sally, right? She was in one film, and in the original timeline, they killed her off, right? Between 2 and 3 or something. It's in the opening narration, right? That Sally died, 10 years after the original Massacre. So, the character hasn't really been part of the DNA of the franchise for that long. So I'm just curious what people, how people feel about her death, especially the diehard Texas Chainsaw fans. But other than Sally and Lila, we have Melody, the sister, the one who is, originally wanting to move to this town, and then is plagued by guilt after they kick out Leatherface's caregiver, right, Mama. And it turns out that, rather than the bank possessing the home, that Mama actually had the title to the home all along. And I think this character was interesting, especially the sister dynamic. I think was fun to see, especially given the sister dynamic in Scream. Clearly sisterhood is prevalent in horror this year, which is always fun to see. And I think the character of Melody was interesting. Exploring her guilt midway through the film, and then wanting to protect her sister. And then other themes, I definitely, with Richter, the mechanic carpenter that they hire, I could definitely see them exploring themes of the other, with this character. He couldn't be any more different than these 20-somethings coming in from the city. And then they really explored, biases and opinions that we might have of each other across state lines, across socioeconomic differences. And I thought that was really interesting, So anytime horror it tries to elevate above the schlocky, baseline, I appreciate it. It's not always going to be a home run, but it's interesting. So other than those core characters, now I'll probably do other videos. I could do deep dives into, Dante, Richter, Ruth, I think her name was. The first, Ruth, yeah, Dante's fiance. Um, you know, well, speaking of Ruth, the set pieces were absolutely stunning. And then I love when, in a horror film, when you can define a scene by the set piece, right? Like, talking about this movie, the sunflower field. Boom, you know exactly what we're talking about. That was awesome. The underground, when Melody is hit with the hammer and she flies into the basement, and Leatherface has the chainsaw chasing her. Amazing. With Dante, the nod to the original. When Dante is hit with the cleaver and he tries to leave the kitchen, and Leatherface grabs him back through the door, clearly a nod to the original film. I thought that was pretty clever how they did that. The bus scene, again, the town of Harlow itself, which brings me to the cinematography. The colors in this film, right? The darkness of Harlow in the rain with the neon lights. Beautiful, beautiful. Leatherface in the fog, Leatherface in the sunflower field, right? Like, really cool shots that I think really elevated the film for me. But yeah, I'm going to keep it short and sweet for today. I think this week I'm going to do some deep dives into some of the characters and just some other little things that I picked up through the film. I'll do more kind of specific videos, but just kind of want to get my initial spoiler thoughts on the film. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at PoltergeistSteve. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when my next videos come up.